welcome to the Team Ottawa podcast with Mayor Mark Sutcliffe. I'm Sam LaPrade. Mayor, I noticed you were visiting a number of communities in Ottawa because, of course, the storm, the Canada Day storm, people are still recovering, and you were out visiting them.
Yeah, and I want to put all of this in context. Go back to July the 1st, everybody was celebrating Canada Day and storm clouds formed. And in the space of 2 or 3 hours, we had not just a record amount of rainfall, but something like 2 to 3 times the record amount of rainfall for July the 1st. So it was an unprecedented extreme weather event like nothing we've ever seen before. We don't have enough information yet to fully contextualize just how, the magnitude of this event. But I've heard people talking about how this was not just a once in 100 years kind of storm, but maybe a once in 500 years kind of storm for Ottawa. And the volume of water that was involved, especially in areas like Nepean and the west end of the old Ottawa, places like Crystal Beach and Bell's Corners and Qualicum, a little bit in Canada as well. The volume of water was just well beyond what any system in any municipality is designed to withstand. So as a result, we have 4,500 homes in our city with flooded basements. That's more than we've ever dealt with before. I think in 1 year where there was significant flooding along the Ottawa River in the spring, we dealt with 2,000 flooded basements. This is more than double that. We've had hundreds and hundreds of calls for service, which we are responding to. So the magnitude of this event is enormous. And for anyone who has not seen pictures or video on television or those kinds of things, I can tell you from visiting some of the affected residents, it's absolutely devastating to see what they're going through. Their possessions destroyed by the water, their furniture in their basements, their entire basements. And in many of these communities, as you know, Sam, these are people who live in bungalows where the basement is, a big part of their home. It's not just, where they store stuff. It's the family room. There might be a bedroom down there. So it's taken away a huge amount of living space for people. And of course, everyone's contacting their insurance company. The insurance companies are dealing with this volume as quickly as they can, but it takes time. So there's a great deal of anxiety and impatience in the community, which I completely relate to. I can only imagine, we went through something, a small amount of flooding in my home when I was a kid, and it was very difficult and challenging. And so I can only imagine the magnitude of this event, what people are going through. But we're doing everything we can to support residents while they wait for the insurance process to be completed. And I can walk through some of the things that we've been doing.
Please, yes.
But I just want to say again, is spending time with those residents, going in people's backyards and people's front doorways, talking to them on the street. I completely understand what they're going through. I sympathize, I empathize, and it's devastating for them. And it's while they wait, it's a lot of anxious nights.
And I know as soon as you heard about the flooding and the magnitude of what you were dealing with, you made a number of calls dealing with garbage and a number of the items people would be throwing out, construction waste, etc. Walk me through that.
Yeah, I mean, right away from July the 1st onward, I was on the phone with councillors in the wards that were affected. And by the way, to different levels of magnitude, but every single ward in the city has someone reporting a flooded basement. So this is not specific to one part of the city. It's more concentrated in certain parts of the city, like College Ward, Bay Ward, and Knoxdale, Maryvale. But in every ward in the city, there's someone having a flooded basement. So it's all over the city. So I spoke directly to some residents. I spoke to the councillors in the affected areas. I spoke to city staff. We immediately implemented a number of measures around garbage collection to support residents. We opened up community spaces so people could go and have a shower. We sent members of the fire department around to do wellness checks on some individuals. We've since, taken further steps to lift the limit on what kind of materials can be collected and how much material can be collected. So we're doing things we would not normally do with garbage collection. And I just want to reassure people, we are going to get to you, as you can imagine. And I've seen examples of this, people their entire basement is out at the curb. And when a garbage truck comes around, they can only collect from 2 or 3 homes before the garbage truck is full. They take it to the landfill site, and then they come back. I just want to reassure people they're coming back.
Right.
They're going to keep coming back until it's all gone. And if you have material, just keep putting it out at the curb. They'll keep coming back until it's all gone. We've scheduled extra pickup days in all the affected areas. We also have allowed people to go to the Trail Road facility and dump materials themselves, and we're waiving the fees on that. We're waiving building permit fees for when people get to the point of renovating and restoring their basements. So we're doing everything we can on that front. I've also had a number of conversations with members of the provincial government, including Premier Ford, Minister Jill Dunlop, Minister Rob Flack. We're working with the provincial government to activate disaster relief funding that would support residents beyond what their insurance provides. The way that works at a very high level is you go through your insurance, you get as much coverage as you can for your insurance, and then if there are still expenses you're incurring, then you go through this disaster relief program through the Ontario government. It's called DRAO. We're posting details about that, and then people will be able to apply for that. We also have a program, and this is another way to put this in context. We have a program where we provide up to $1,000 of financial support to any resident whose basement floods. We've had that program for 16 years, and over the course of 16 years, 55 people have received funding, have applied for and received funding through that program. 55 over 16 years, so a handful every year. We've already had more than 200 people apply for help this year, and given that there are 4,500 flooded basements, I imagine that number is going to go up significantly. So I'll be making a motion at council, at our next council meeting, to top up the funds in that program so that there's enough money for every single resident who's been affected by this. Again, it's not a huge amount of money, but it can help with miscellaneous expenses as people go through this very, very difficult time. So we're activating every possible resource we can to support members of the community. We're going to have more information coming out about how to deal with mold. We're going to have information sessions in the community. We're going to have more outreach, people checking in on vulnerable members of the population, older adults, and so on. So there are a lot of resources being deployed to respond to this as people continue to wait for the permanent solution that they're going to get through their insurance.
Really helpful. A lot of information there. Really appreciate that, Mayor. What we know is the city certainly is stepping in, and you mentioned your conversations as well with Premier Ford. What we also see, as we do every single time in this city, is neighbors helping neighbors, strangers helping strangers. Has that inspired you over the last few days?
Yeah, it's really heartwarming. And, I always say, it's a shame that it takes a crisis to see people at their best, but you really do see people at their best in this community when there is a crisis. And I spoke to a woman the other day who was in tears, just talking about how her friend had come over to help her through it. There was another family where, a couple of people had come over and helped them remove some stuff from their basement. So many great examples of neighbors who were not directly affected by the floods, helping neighbors who were. It's a beautiful thing to see, and it's very inspiring and heartwarming, and it is a silver lining in this very, very difficult time for many of our residents.
And you mentioned as well, lots of information coming, obviously, to watch the information coming from yourself, the mayor, but also lots of information coming from other departments in the city.
Yeah, please go to the Ottawa website, the City of Ottawa's website, ottawa.ca. There's a lot of information there. There's information on our social media channels. You can also call 311 or ask questions at our, there's an online portal for 311 as well. So there are a number of different ways you can engage. I encourage people to talk to their city councilors as well, because our councilors are on the front lines. They know exactly what's going on in each neighborhood of the community. There are different circumstances in every part of the city. It's not a one-size-fits-all approach that we're taking. It's very tactical. And so your city councilor is the best source of information for what's happening in your neighborhood, what resources may be coming. So please, I encourage you to continue reaching out to your city councilors as well.
Very helpful. Thank you so much, Mayor.
Thank you, and good luck to everyone.
Absolutely. This is the Team Ottawa podcast with Mayor Mark Sutcliffe.